The What to Next podcast helps you build a TBR of each your favorite books. In each episode, Lori and Mean interviews authors and book influencers to recommend books they loved for you to pick up today. If you're an avid reader, always looking for your next great read, then the show's for you. Hi, Rochelle. Welcome to What to Next podcast.
I'm thrilled to be here.
So happy to have you here. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I am a romance novelist and a food writer. I guess the romance novelist is the by night job, but by day I work as a freelance food writer for a variety of different magazines and websites about food. And it's funny, I always answer that question, tell me about yourself, by saying what I do, but there are other things that are interesting about me. I live in northern Vermont, and I have two adorable corgis who are the loves of my life. I mean, my boyfriend's great too, but the corgis really rule.
Oh my gosh, I love it. And so how did you get started with food writing? Were you passionate about food or writing, or is just like kind of like you fell into it?
I was passionate about food and writing.
Yeah.
So when I was in college, I knew that I wanted to be a writer, but I didn't really know how that would take shape. But I loved to cook, and I thought, well, maybe I can marry these two things. And this was in the era of food blogs. I don't know if you remember that, about, like 15 years ago, when everyone had a food blog.
Yeah.
Including myself.
Yeah.
And I just thought, a way to make myself stand out from the crowd would be if I actually went to culinary school.
Yeah.
So after college, I enrolled in culinary school and did that because I wanted to get the street cred,
Yeah.
And then I worked in a restaurant for a short period of time, but that was not my strength. I'm a little too soft and emotional and tender for restaurant work. So then I transitioned to that's when I kind of made the jump. Oh, right. I never wanted to work in restaurants. I wanted to write about food. So that's when I started working in that industry.
I love this. I love the fact that I had a healthy living blog. Like I was focused on fitness and like fun stuff and your lifestyle. That was an era.
It was the era of oversharing too.
Yeah.
I was very much of the mindset, back in my early 20s, that okay, I'm going to share a recipe that I've created and not tested or anything, food, like we never tested our recipes, but I also had to, share a story about the date I went on the night before and the crushes that I had. It was all out there.
It was all out there. Yeah. Like I remember sharing a lot of things, and it's as I grew older, I become more private about my life. And then the other, like what I share in the public is very like niche to books, and every so often I sprinkle things about my life, but it's really rare. That sense of like it has to be all about what I did last night.
It's funny, and it's funny you mentioned that desire to keep more inside or keep more private as you get older, because relevant to book publishing, my first book was a memoir, which I wrote when I was 25, and it was the best book I could have written at the time.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot to love in that book, but if I could write it now, I would have kept a few more secrets for myself. So it's funny looking back at that lens. We evolve as writers.
We do. So how did you end up writing a romance novel?
So I had, as I mentioned, I wrote my first book, The Call of the Farm, which was a memoir about my year spent living, working, and loving on a small farm in upstate New York. And so I had an agent from that period. And so I was already involved with my agency, but I kind of just let writing books fall by the wayside, because at the time, after that book got published, I started working full-time for Bon Appetit magazine.
Okay.
So I had, the big full-time fancy New York City food writer job,
Yeah.
which took up a lot of my time and mental energy, and I just didn't feel the pull to write another book. But once I started going freelance, that's when we start to get that little, ooh, I should take on a new project wheel turning in our brain.
Yeah.
And I kept thinking I have to write another nonfiction book because that's what I had written
Yeah.
previously.
Yeah.
Um, but I struggled with that because I didn't want to write another memoir. And as I mentioned, I wanted to keep some secrets. And I don't think that I just didn't consider the world of fiction could be open to me. And this is
Yeah.
where our agents come in, because my agent suggested, well, it sounds like what you're really good at writing and what you like to write is romance. Maybe you should look into that genre.
Yeah.
And thus began my education and love affair with this genre. All of a sudden, I realized I not only have found my people, but I've been missing this for so long and I had no idea. It was just like kismet. Like I knew this is where I belong.
I feel that so much because I discovered romance later in life after trying to do all this journey. And I think I discovered romance in 2016, which was like an interesting year for many, many other reasons. And so I remember being like, holy crap, there's a genre that doesn't have ambiguous ending. It has endings that are tightly knit and has together. It shows me a plethora of different relationships. So I'm not just driving into this toxic relationship. There's like healthy relationships, people working things out. There's opportunities, there's exploration, opportunities to explore who you are as a person, who you are in this world. And so it's like it's an education, and then you find a community who's just as passionate about it.
Yeah, I love that. I love what you said about romance being a place to explore and grow. And what I think all literature can do that, but what makes romance special is the framework is always a safe space to do
Yeah.
that in.
Yeah.
Sometimes literature can jar you and scar you and feel intense.
Yeah.
Romance pushes you and makes you question yourself and be reflective, but you know that you're safe within
Yeah.
those boundaries.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm drawn to it.
I love this. And so let's talk about Ruby Spencer's Risky Year. So there's a little bit of food writing there. Let's
Just a little.
just a little. Talk to us about Ruby Spencer's journey. Like, what's the elevator pitch?
Well, what I love about Ruby is I think in some ways she is the classic romance heroine. She has the sun, she's definitely the sunshine trope. She's quirky. We love her for that. But she is a little older than the typical romance heroine. She's in her mid 30s. Um, and what I wanted her to experience was reality versus expectation. And I wanted her to discover what would happen when she decided to start showing up to her life exactly as it was, rather than what she dreams it should be like, which is, I think, a problem many of us have. So when you do show up to your life in a real present way with what is there exactly, it's never perfect, but it's often better than you could have imagined,
Yeah.
because we just don't have the creativity. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I think it's like it's a place of like if you're surrendered to you're present to that present moment, you're always like safe, secure, and all this stuff. And like things unravel in ways that you never thought you expected, but they're the perfect moment for that moment. And they're gonna meet your needs at that place that you are. And like
Yeah.
it may not be what you want, but it might be what you need. And sometimes that's where the magic happens, not when you think you imagine it's gonna be like this way, and it's like, no, your life can be so much funner.
Yes, and but what's funny is we often don't realize the lesson or the poignancy of the moment until it's gone and we
Yeah.
reflect back on it.
Yeah.
So I had the benefit of having reflection. Ruby didn't, she was just out there living it. But
Yeah. Yeah.
because she goes to this town in Scotland thinking it's going to be like Outlander. She thinks it's going
Yeah.
to be all, windswept moors and cliff views and handsome Scots who immediately fall in love with her. And it's, it wasn't that exactly, but it was definitely better than that for
Yeah,
her.
I love this. And so, do we expect more books from you, like more romance books, or is there is
What's
there
that?
is there more romance books for you? Are you?
Yes, I actually just finished the first draft of my next book. I owe it to my editor in a couple weeks, so there's ample time for me to rewrite half a dozen scenes before I send it back in. That one is about a professional chef who moves back to her Maine hometown for one summer and one summer only.
I love that you like set it up, or like you have this set expectations, and as a writer, I'm just gonna turn your life upside down. It's gonna be a fun game.
Because you know what? My characters do that to me all the time. So I'm going to give it right back to them. Like, listen, you think you run the show? I run the show.
Yeah.
We all know it's actually our characters who run the show,
Yeah,
though.
I understand. Awesome. So let's chat some book recommendations. Do you have any books to recommend our listeners to pick up?
I do. And this is not in the romance genre.
Yep.
But because I'm also a food writer, I had a couple food writer
Yes.
books to recommend. My first is a book called Cookies by, I'm going to just butcher his last name, Jesse Sizzerwick. There's a lot of Z's and C's in there, and I don't know what to do with them. But we worked at the same food writing website, The Kitchen, and so he does recipe development there and food styling, but wrote an entire book about cookies. And they are the best cookie recipes I have ever tried. A lot of them you don't even need a stand mixer,
Yeah.
which that's the challenge, right? I want cookies. It's 2 p.m. I'm not about to break out every bowl in my kitchen. They're
Yeah.
easy. All I have to say is red wine brownie cookies and sweet potato snickerdoodles. Totally delicious. So that would be like a big go-to cookbook for me. I use it all the time, which is
You're speaking my language, because I told my friend I'm like going back to baking, trying to fall in love with it, and I was like, I cannot bake cakes and breads and stuff like that because I live by myself. So I need something that's like a little bit more magical. And I was like, I should do a cookie project where I just like bake a cookie like every other week and like freeze up the dough and all those different things. And so you just gave me the actual book that I can actually follow.
it's fate. And the thing with cookies too, you nailed it on the head. When I make cookies, I will make the batter,
Yeah.
form it into the balls, and
Yeah.
then freeze half of them.
Yeah.
Because it's like nobody needs 3 dozen cookies lying around in the house, or
Yeah.
at least I don't.
I don't.
But then you have cookies at a moment's notice. A
Yeah.
week later, you want cookies, and there's just all these.
And there's a better.
You're like, thank you, past me. I'm patting myself on the back for
Yeah.
listeners. So that would be definitely a book I recommend. And I also, this is not romance, but this book has stayed with me and I have to recommend it. I just read George Saunders' most recent book of short stories called Liberation Day. George Saunders, for folks who don't know, is a short story writer most typically, and he teaches writing at Syracuse University, and I grew up in Syracuse, so I feel a little, sense
I
of.
went to Syracuse.
Wait, you did?
I did. I went to Syracuse. Yes. I went from Puerto Rico to Syracuse thinking the pictures look really pretty in the snow. I did not know how much snow I was gonna get for 4 years.
Yes, and it's not just the snow in Syracuse that will get you, it's the gray.
Yes.
Those are very gray there. But I love Syracuse fiercely, and I will defend it to the end. So anyone from Syracuse has a connection to Syracuse. If I'm at the gym and I see someone wearing a Syracuse sweatshirt or something, I'll go up to them and say, did you go to Syracuse? Are you from there? What's
Yeah.
your favorite neighborhood? You know, where do you, like just
I miss the Wegmans. Like it was like like I was telling because I live in New York City, so the Wegmans open up in New York Manhattan. I was like, it's still not the same as the one in Syracuse. And I used to go to try to cheese Rochester and Buffalo and the Finger Lakes in Cornell. And it's like it's a whole vibe, like upstate vibe.
it is such a vibe. But George Saunders actually
Yeah.
captures some of that. There's, I don't know, this is kind of silly. I might be getting a little too deep cut here. But in Syracuse, there's a furniture store called Dunk and Bright.
Yes.
And so you know it. And in March, they changed the name of their furniture store to O'Dunk and O'Bright, like, you know, Irish, like
Oh, okay.
Dunk and O'Bright. And in his George Saunders' most recent book of short stories, he talks about an appliance store named Domini's that changes their name to O'Domini's in March. And I was like, I see you, George Saunders. I know what you're doing, Syracuse. But anyway, the book is just full of like mildly dystopian stories that, which is normally not my genre. I don't
Yeah.
like to have my feathers ruffled in that way, but there's so much tenderness and humor and love in the stories too that they just shook me to my core, and I can't stop thinking about them.
Oh
So
my gosh, I love this. I'm definitely gonna pick it up because I'm like the Syracuse connection. It's a 20-year-old connection, but it's a good one, you know.
when once you've been a Syracusan, you're always a Syracusan.
Yeah. Yeah. And I have a question. What romance novel was so gateway like for you?
Ooh, um, Denise Williams, How to Fail at Flirting. I so we share an agent. Our agent
Yeah.
is Sharon Pelletier, and uh, I just, you know, I had read some books in the genre, but was not widely read. And once I realized I think this is a genre I might want to hang out in, uh, I asked my agent for recommendations, and then she said, you have to read Denise. And so when I picked up How to Fail at Flirting, I, no joke, was absolutely laughing out loud. I was reading some of her characters always have such good banter, and
Mhm.
you know, reading their interactions with a hand over my mouth, you know, oh my gosh, I can't believe this. And I just, her stories have it all. They're funny, they're sexy, there's growth in the characters, and it made me realize that there's so much potential in this
Yeah.
genre. Like, your stories can have it all. And I was just like, I need to write books that are as sassy and funny as hers. It just, I mean, I'm a little more, I would say my writing style is a little more cozy and soft, whereas
Yeah.
hers is a little more sassy and witty. But I just, man, she is such an inspiration. She's so good.
She's really good. So, and that's a great book to start. Like, it's a great gateway drug. Like, you know, sometimes like treat it as that, you know, like just to get yourself into this genre and be like, oh my gosh, there's more to come. But
Yes. And
yeah,
I do think that that book in particular is great for people who might not consider themselves romance
yeah,
readers. They might not, you know, say, "Oh yeah, I love romance. I would, you know, I pick up romance at the library." But if you handed that book to anyone who likes to read, they would be into it. So yeah, it's perfect. She's a star.
I love this. Okay, Rochelle, tell us where you can find you online.
What's that?
Tell us where you can find you online. So,
Oh,
website
yeah.
stuff.
So I am old and I will never be on Snapchat. I will never be on TikTok. I am just, this is the hill I'm going to die on, but you can definitely find me on Instagram and Twitter. My Instagram handle is just at Rochelle Bilow, so it's just my name. And then my Twitter handle is that flipped around, so it's Bilow Rochelle, just to make things confusing. And if you read Food and Wine, if you read The Kitchen, The Spruce Eats, all recipes, I write for all of those places about food. I cover cooking tips and I test equipment for the kitchen, which is really fun. I currently have 7 toaster ovens in my kitchen right now. I'm testing those for serious eats. So there is a lot of frozen pizza and chicken wings in my future.
Yeah.
But those are the best places to find me. And you can always drop a line. I have a contact form on my website, which is RochelleBilowWriting.com. You can always find me there.
Awesome. Thank you, Rochelle, for a great interview.
Thank you. I had a blast.
If you enjoyed this podcast, feel free to share with friends, subscribe, rate, and review the show. This is the easiest way to support the podcast. For a list of books mentioned and other romance recommendations, please visit whattoreadnextblog.com. Did you know you can purchase audiobooks directly from your favorite local bookstore? With Libro.fm, you can pick up more than 250,000 audiobooks, including bestsellers and recommendations from real booksellers. You'll get the same audiobooks at the same price as the largest audiobook company, you know the name, but you'll be part of a different story, one that supports your local community. If you're new to audiobooks, there's a perfect way to squeeze into more reading into your busy life. Listen with the free Libro.fm app while you do your chores, walk your dog, relax at home. The What to Read Next podcast has a special offer for our listeners. Get 2 audiobooks on Libro.fm for the price of 1 with your first month of membership. Use code What to Read Next. This offer is only valid for new members in Canada and the US. Thank you so much for listening and have a great day.